Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminolly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, horror, I'm going to talk about Zombie by Joyce Carol Oates. Now, Joyce Carol Oates is one of those authors I've been aware of for a long time, but I've only really started reading recently. So I read an early novel of hers, which I think was called Triumph of the Spider Monkey, a couple of years ago, which was one that was republished by Hard Case Crime, which was pretty good, not fantastic, but quite fun. And then I read a short story of hers, which was included in the Ellen Datlow edited collection When Things Get Dark, which is all stories that are in tribute to Shirley Jackson. And the Joyce Carol Oates story in there was, I thought, the best story in the collection. It was absolutely fantastic. And then not long ago, I read a book of hers called Jack of Spades, which I got out of the library, which was kind of a suspense novel, a bit like The Dark Half, so similar kind of themes to The Dark Half by Stephen King. But took it in a very different direction, and that was really good as well. Zombie was a book of hers that I've wanted to read for a while because I'd heard such good things about it. It won the Stoker Award in 1995, and I can see why. It's quite an incredible piece of fiction, and not really like anything I've read before. So I've read, being a fan of crime and horror, I've read a lot of novels that are about serial killers and psychopaths and whatnot. But I don't think I've read one before that gets under the skin of a psychopath as completely as Zombie feels like it does. So it's written from the perspective of a killer who's called QP and refers to himself as QP throughout the book. You do find out later on in the book that his first name is Quentin. But that, really is about it. And he is a fascinatingly horrible character. I believe that Joyce Carol Oates was kind of inspired to write this after hearing about the Jeffrey Dahmer case, and particularly by the fact that Dahmer preyed on people who were in many ways defenceless in society because, English wasn't their first language and things like that, and they weren't taken seriously by the police. So similarly, in Zombie, the main character, who's a young white gay man, works as a caretaker in accommodation for foreign students who've come, particularly from Asia, to the US, and he is able to use the power that gives him over them to find victims, but also to put the police off the scent and things like that. And his particular crimes are just fantastically horrible. So obviously, the Dahmer case and the cannibalism and things like that it involved was, absolutely horrific. Rather than aping that, Joyce Carol Oates takes a slightly different route with her killer. So his obsession, and you find this out early on in the book, so it's not a spoiler, is in creating zombies, hence the title of the book. And he plans to do that by lobotomizing his victims and making them obey him thereafter. And you get it's really interestingly written. So he's got a very unique voice, but you also get pictures and things like that throughout the book. Of things which are important to him, including, things like the tools that he's going to use for these lobotomies. But yeah, the main thing about this book, which just struck me again and again as I was reading it, and has continued to strike me since I finished it, so this is really a book that lingers with you, is how believable his voice is in this book. It really does feel like it could be real, which is horrible, given the depths of the things that he does. Joyce Carol Oates really does get into his psyche, this character, and does that in a way which I think is quite rare in fiction of any sort, but particularly horror fiction. And what could have felt like quite an exploitative book, I think, in the hands of a different writer, ends up feeling like a really intelligent, thoughtful investigation of the serial killer in modern American society. So what creates serial killers, but also how the structures of society allow them, and particularly American society, allow them to get away with their crimes, often for lengthy periods of time. In this book, he comes from quite a wealthy family, and his dad has a lawyer who has got him out of previous scrapes where he has approached young men and clearly had dodgy intentions. So constantly this rich lawyer is giving him advice and getting him out of trouble. And again, it's just really credible that people who are known to the authorities in that way are able to keep on offending, because they're able to avoid prosecution and imprisonment. So yeah, a really horrific, unsettling, powerful book, written by a writer who I definitely need to read more of. This has convinced me that Joyce Carol Oates is a great writer, and I'm really keen to read more by her. She's a writer who dabbles in crime and horror stuff a lot, and that's all the stuff I've read by her so far has been in those areas. But she does write other things as well, and she's a very, very well respected writer, and on the basis of this I can see why I thought this was a fantastic piece of fiction, and one that I think is definitely going to stay with me for years to come, unfortunately. A very, very good book. Okay, time for a random book from the shelves. So I thought I'd pluck one by another female author of horror and crime fiction, Susan Hill. So like Zombie, this is a book, I'm the King of the Castle, that has a reputation for being quite dark and disturbing. I haven't read it yet, so I've read a few things by Susan Hill. I've read The Woman in Black, which is clearly her most famous work. Another one of her ghost stories, which I completely forgotten the name of now, which wasn't as good as The Woman in Black, but was still pretty good. And then I've read, I think, a couple of her Ian Serraillier detective novels, which were really entertaining. So this one, I think, is about kind of childhood bullying and a young psychopath. So similar in some ways to Zombie. Is supposed to be excellent. I think it won awards. Yes, it won the Somerset Maugham Award. So yeah, another very well respected book, and one I definitely need to get to at some point. So as always, thank you very much for watching. Let me know if you've read Zombie or other books by Joyce Carol Oates and what you thought of them. As I say, I think this is an uncommonly good book about insanity. I don't think there are many books I've read that get under the skin of truly evil, insane people in the way that this one does. I thought it was fascinating and horrible in equal measure. A book that I pretty much devoured in one sitting. It's very, very hard to put down once you've started it. So yeah, let me know if you've read it and what you thought of it. As always, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well. Hope you're really good stuff, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.